based on his injuries, it looks to me like he got into a fight and fell backwards. There was not a single pathologist in either trial that didn't say the mortal wound came from falling backwards and hitting his head. That was agreed on. He had bruises on his hands. The prosecution tried to say that those came from IVs, but I've had many IVs. I've had them in my hands, and my hands never looked like that. But I dropped him off. He went up to the breezeway, and 6 a.m., I find him in a heap, missing his hat, missing his shoe, and laying there with a piece of glass in his face. So someone in that house killed John O'Keefe.
The Alberts have stated that they were asleep. And there's footage of you. There's body cam footage of you like screaming, dash cam footage. How loud were you screaming? Because there's all these comments about, oh, the wind, the blizzard.
I've done research, and my understanding is that the snow can muffle sounds. I don't need to wonder if Brian Albert and Nicole Albert were awake. According to the Commonwealth's own witness, mine as well, but theirs as well, Ian Whiffen, Nicole Albert at 5 a.m. has an answered phone call from Jen McCabe.
Goddamn!
Answered and deleted. Furthermore, Nicole Albert at 6:07 a.m. and 6:08 a.m. has 2 more phone calls, each lasting about 7 seconds, from Jen McCabe, answered and deleted. This is not conjecture. This is not my theory. This is in the data. Pour over my phone records. By the way, I had no deleted calls, no deleted Google searches. I actually didn't have any Google searches at all.
Hello?
But I know from the data, according to the data, unless the data is wrong, and this is Celebrite, was just used to help convict Brian Walsh of murdering his wife. The same Celebrite used by law enforcement globally is telling me that Nicole Albert's phone answered a call from her sister at 5 a.m. and then 2 more at 6 a.m. So that would lead me to assume that Nicole Albert was awake.
Have you guys ever tried to recreate the quote unquote butt dials?
No, because it's not possible.
Ooh.
It's not possible.
Nope.
I have called people, and we jokingly, my friends and I, and my family and I, we say butt dial when we mean, like, I may be scrolling through my call log, and I accidentally activate that name and it calls, or someone sent me their number on Instagram and I went to press it down and copy it so then I could save it in my contacts and it called them. And then I'll say, haha, butt dial.
Yeah.
But it wasn't an actual accidental phone call made while the phone was completely inert. That's what they're saying butt dials are. Even if you're able to inadvertently make a phone call, they're all doing it in the middle of the night. All of them. Higgins is saying he made a butt dial. Brian Albert is saying it was a butt dial.
Well, it's kind of like a butt dial.
Goddamn.
I believe I used the word butt dials.
Well, I used a phrase that people commonly used as a butt dial.
Not just a butt dial, but a butt answer and a butt hang up.
Yeah.
On both ends. So you're saying you accidentally called him.
You
he
wrong.
Accidentally answered.
You wrong.
He accidentally hung up, and then you accidentally hung up. Jen McCabe said the slew of phone calls to John at 1:45, between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, she had over a dozen phone calls to John. She's claiming those were all butt dials.
Yep.
What are the chances these people who were together all night are engaging in, if you count them, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 butt phone actions?
Hey man,
Answering,
what's up, guys?
dialing,
Kevin from
hanging
South
up.
Boston.
They meaning the Alberts, McCabes, and Higgins, appear to have kept it simple.
What's up, Kevin from South?
And
Hey man, what's up,
agreed
guys?
to
Kevin from South Boston.
several mantras, and just those mantras.
Hey man,
One of
what's
them
up,
was
guys?
butt dials, and the other, I don't recall, or not that I recall.
I don't remember.
I don't recall.
I don't remember. I don't recall my interview.
I don't recall.
I do not recall having.
I don't recall.
I don't remember.
I don't remember if I was tired.
If they were coached, it was smart. Keep it simple. Because when they start to add details to their renditions of what happened that
They
night,
get caught up.
they're completely inconsistent.
Mhm.
Brian Higgins said his Jeep was parked in front of the house. He backed it up. He had a plow. He went into great detail, and he jokingly plowed some snow for Brian and Nicole to pull in, and then Matt and Jen, and then he V'd out and pulled in front of the house by the mailbox.
Mhm.
Yet Jen McCabe didn't see the car, and she was apparently on night watch at the front door and never saw a Jeep. A
God
Jeep with a
damn.
plow, which is something memorable. Ryan Nagel, Ricky D'Antono, and Heather Maxon were behind me. They never saw the Jeep. So my point being, their group thought is simple, but as soon as you require details from these people,
Yep.
their stories are all over the place.
Nice.
Do you think Chloe the Albert German Shepherd is still alive?
This is the question I get asked the most. Is what happened to the dog? And
Yeah.
I realize I do not have a dog. I realize this is where society is a lot of us love dogs more than we love people or just
Oh, yeah.
as much. But
Catty
I get
cat.
this question constantly. I have no idea what happened to Chloe. Based on what I know, I would guess the dog is dead. I don't believe it's the dog they claim it is up in New Hampshire. We asked for proof, and all they gave was animal control vaccination records that I can literally go to animal control and get a copy of the vaccination records. And this woman in New Hampshire, who we have no address, no phone number for, she's claiming this is the dog, this is his birthday, and this is his vaccination. Well, anybody can get that.
Right.
At what point in the investigation
there you
did
have
you feel
that.
like, okay, this is not an investigation into a tragic accident? I'm being framed. Like, what is there a specific moment it hits you?
So they had my phone in my car within a half hour of coming to my parents' house. So they left my parents at 4:15 on January 29th. They took my phone and they took the car. I was hoping desperately, this is a case of they've got the wrong guy.
Yeah.
I'm arrested on February 1st, and then I'm arraigned the next morning. I hadn't met in person David Yannetti, but I had already engaged with him on January 29th. He comes to the holding cell at the courthouse in Stoughton, and he has one copy of the police report that Michael Proctor authored. He's holding the police report. Now, they're already calling my case at 9 a.m. It's like 9:10. And I don't know what I'm walking into. I don't know what they have against me. I don't know anything. David is holding the police report and we're reading it together. They only gave him one copy. So his hands between the bars, I'm leaning in and we're reading it quick. I don't know how I had the focus to even comprehend and read at that moment. It was like just another fight or flight focus, Karen. This is about to be read in front of a courtroom filled with people. The first thing that stood out to me was, it said they arrived at my parents' house, Proctor and Buchnick arrived at my parents' house at 4:30 p.m. and left at 5:30 p.m. And I knew right away that was wrong. I've lived in New England most of my life. 5:30 in the middle of January is pitch black outside. 4:30 p.m. is almost pitch black outside. And I knew when they left my house, my parents' house, it was still somewhat light outside because I remember watching the flatbed with my truck go by the front window. I knew they had gotten to the house around 3:00, and I knew they weren't there for 2.5 hours. So I thought, well, maybe this is how police reports are written initially in a cursory fashion, that they're approximate times, and then we can tighten timelines later. But that always bothered me. And then every affidavit that was accompanying every seizure of evidence after that kept saying the same thing, that on January 29th, we went to the house in Dighton at 4:30, we left at 5:30. So that was the first time I thought, all right, we're dealing with very sloppy, imprecise police. That was my first inkling that this isn't completely ticked and tied. After I was released from the arraignment on February 2nd, that evening, David called me. David Yannetti called me and said he had gotten an anonymous phone call from someone saying, you need to pay attention to who lives in the house. I had not even thought about the Alberts. Not one way or the other, just that I knew that was their house and they had been with us the night before, and I had met them for the first time a week before that. So it was very early on. I've been lucky that very early on and at regular intervals since, I have been given gifts of information that helped buoy me.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, hearing that information from David, so of course, as soon as David says, this anonymous caller says, look at the owner of the house, I start Googling Brian Albert. And it's within seconds, I find a Google video of him in a boxing ring beating people up. And he looks, I've met him, but I haven't paid much attention to him, but he sounds gruff, and he's walking into some drug bust with some kind of shield and weapons. And he looked like a tough, mean guy. Mind you, though, at this time, what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
She knows how difficult this is for any defendant to stand trial.
But she
When
don't
the
give a fuck.
verdict was read, we were prepared for a sentencing hearing.
Right.
So my legal team in the days of the verdict watch was split up into two groups. At the hotel, Alan had a suite at one end of the top floor, and Bob Alessi had a suite at the other. And we had two teams. Liza, Evan, Alan, and I were working on the closing argument. David, Yannetti, Bob, and Sophie and Sydney, two of our interns, were in Bob's room working on a sentencing hearing. So if, God forbid, I was convicted of anything, which we thought there was a likelihood I could be convicted of the OUI based on how the first trial ended, hung up looking, jurors were telling us they were looking for an OUI, not a manslaughter OUI, but just garden variety OUI that was not there. They were working on sentencing that if I was convicted of OUI, we fully expected, I did anyway, my lawyers were split, that Brennan would ask for the maximum 2 years.
Yep.
So it was such a difficult decision to put the OUI on the slip because I felt I was almost guaranteeing I was going to go to jail.
Right.
That with this district attorney and this judge,
There's
if
no
I
way.
don't put OUI on, the
It could go
jury's
the other way.
forced, if they want to convict me, it's
Manslaughter.
going to have to do with John's death. But
Right.
once I put OUI on, just drunk driving, I'm much more likely, based on the evidence, the blood alcohol taken from the hospital, I'm more likely to get a conviction. And while I'm not facing life in prison, I could be facing 2 years in prison. I had to have, I got about a dozen character letters, they're called, of not friends and family, but teachers I've had, students I've had, coworkers of mine, And the character letter has to be written on the premise that you are guilty. You're not arguing for my innocence. You have to accept the conviction, but then argue for the judge based on my character and what they know about me personally.
Not
That she
getting
should have
time.
light on sentencing. So I'm in one room preparing for a full acquittal with Alan's clothes, and then I'm running down the hall and making sure all the character letters are getting printed, and we have case law for the judge that this is a first-time OUI. What do you do for a first-time OUI? You suspend their license and they go to a drunk driving class.
Right.
If Brennan, which we expected was going to argue for jail time, we had to have a robust motion in opposition. Why not? So the verdict is read. I'm relieved, but I'm still waiting. After the final not guilty, the leading scene was read. I still have sentencing because I was found guilty of the OUI. So Judge Cannoni looks at Hank Brennan and says, and what do you recommend for sentencing? And this was almost more shocking than the verdict.
Yep.
Truly shocking. Like, I had expected it. If I had to bet an appendage, had thought if I was convicted of OUI or anything,
He's gonna get
Brennan would
time.
ask for the max sentence. And I thought she would split the baby and say, well, the max is 2, I'm gonna give her a year, which is still devastating. So she looks to Brennan and he says, the Commonwealth recommends 1 year probation with a suspended license. And she looks at him and says,
I'll be happy to do
same
it.
as every other first-time offender. And he goes, same as every other first time. And it was like the most charitable thing. Actually, not even charitable. I'm miscalibrated. It was fair.
You're not used to that.
Okay, Mr. Brennan, what's the Commonwealth's recommendation?
I'll be happy to do that. Watch.
We recommend a probation 1 year, 24D program.
So the standard that everybody else gets on a first-time OUI? Okay. So I'm happy to do it.
I'll be happy to do it.
Well,
1 year probation, 1 year probation.
Would you believe
Docket
it?
number 002.
It's the wildest turn of events.
Yeah, it was.
I couldn't believe that this man, Brennan, was
Scumbag.
just arguing in his closing argument 2 days earlier
To give a
for me to
life.
spend my life in prison. And then he has a moment with a judge that seems favorable to him to send me to jail enough
2
to hurt.
years.
A week is enough to hurt.
Yeah.
And he says, just slap her on the wrist. I look at him and it just, so what is this? Were you faking
Is this a
all
game?
along?
God damn, Hank.